They never saw this coming. The left still can't seem to wrap their heads around why Kamala Harris failed so spectacularly. And instead of honest reflection, their excuses keep spiraling deeper into delusion. On a recent panel discussion on Bill Maher's show, even a famously liberal host couldn't dodge the elephant in the room, tearing apart their flimsy logic live on air and forcing an uncomfortable moment of truth. But the real jaw-dropper came when none other than Michael Douglas jumped in, unexpectedly backing Bill and dropping a blunt dose of reality that left the entire panel speechless. Today, we're unpacking that eye-opening exchange and breaking down how the left's refusal to face facts isn't just a political fumble, it's a total strategy meltdown. This conversation is the wake-up call they never saw coming. If you're ready for more raw commentary and no-nonsense analysis, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a breakdown like this.
Who might emerge as the strongest Democratic opposition leader in the next Trump era? Oh, well, that's a good question. I mean, like Adam Schiff, he won, right? Big. And
he won big. I like Westmore.
Westmore's fantastic. He's in Maryland.
Yep.
But who's going to be the one? Gavin Newsom, we have here in this state. He's already called the legislature to. Trump hasn't done anything yet, but I understand the.
This was the problem. There was a 2014 study that showed that Fortune 500 companies were more likely to pick a female CEO if the company was struggling, basically setting women up for the big job, but to also fail. If they did well, fine. But if they failed, look, we have a female CEO while failing. And that's what I feel like they did to Kamala Harris.
That has to be the most absurd excuse I've heard yet. And trust me, I've endured plenty of Joy Reid's commentary over the years. So that's really saying something. Trying to pin Kamala Harris's spectacular failure on her gender isn't just dishonest, it's downright laughable. Let's be real. Harris didn't flop because she's a woman. She flopped because she was an uninspiring, unlikable candidate with no real base, no message that connected, and zero authenticity to back any of it up. It's the same tired excuse they rolled out for Hillary Clinton in 2016. And honestly, it's even more pathetic the second time around. But the spin machine didn't stop there. Sarah tried to toss out yet another excuse to defend Harris's faceplant. And that's when Bill Maher and Michael Douglas stepped in, shutting it down and setting the record straight in a moment that was as needed as it was brutal.
That was a 3-month campaign, and she was supposed to introduce herself to the American people. No wonder people were Googling, did Joe Biden drop out? And so...
No. No. You're saying 3 months wasn't long enough?
It was too long. It was long enough.
It was long enough.
If they had a primary...
Sure, it's not that they didn't have time to introduce. They met someone and they didn't like them.
If they had a primary, they wouldn't have picked her. And if they had, she would have been able to rough out those edges that then she basically has to start from scratch with a campaign team she didn't hire that didn't like her, right? It was his team. And so I wonder if that next Democratic person, maybe someone's not even on our radar yet. Because frankly, when you look at the history of who's, there's two types. The one who waited in line, who was next in line, and then there's the one who comes out. That's Obama, that's Clinton, that's Reagan to some extent.
Listen, if even the Amish, yes, the Amish, knew exactly what was going on during the last election, then there's absolutely no excuse for these mainstream commentators to sit there and claim, asterisk, people just didn't know about Kamala. Asterisk, that's not just wrong. It's lazy and insulting to anyone who's been paying even the slightest bit of attention. Think about it. This is a community that rejects modern technology, doesn't watch TV, and isn't glued to social media 24/7 like the rest of the country. Yet despite all that, they saw through the media noise, understood what was at stake, and turned out in record numbers to vote for Trump. When a group famous for staying far from political chaos suddenly gets involved, you know something seismic is happening. But instead of facing that reality, MSNBC analyst John Heilman chose to double down on Sarah's excuse fest and drag the conversation to a whole new level of absurdity, almost like they're determined to prove just how disconnected they really are.
You're the sitting vice president, and you get put on elevated to the top of the ticket 107 days ahead of the election. I think that is a very high degree of difficulty put on anybody, and I do not think she is the perfect candidate. I tend to agree with Sarah that probably in a fully litigated primary, she probably would not have been the Democratic nominee, but we'll never know that. But I will tell you that, there's never been anybody who's had the difficulty of that situation, elevated that late in the campaign. Why?
What? To run away from
Bill, I don't know if you know this, but the Vice President of the United States is basically shoved in a broom closet for 3.5 years.
I know.
You couldn't.
She was more popular in there.
Yes, well.
I mean, this idea that in a mass media age, that 107 days is not long enough to know somebody?
You are way overestimating the American people in terms of what their ability.
No.
You have someone like Donald Trump has become a universally known, understood, loved by some, hated by others over the course of being omnipresent for 8 years.
Okay.
Barack Obama becomes president of the United States after running for 2 years as president, runs a 50-state primary, is on television, does dozens of Democratic debates, and by the time at the end of that, most people knew who he was.
We all saw this train wreck coming back in the 2020 primaries. Kamala Harris didn't even make it to Iowa. She dropped out before a single vote was cast. That alone should have been a massive red flag. Her campaign didn't just fizzle. It flatlined from a complete lack of genuine support and resources. But fast forward and she was handed every advantage imaginable. Mountains of donor cash, non-stop media cheerleading, and unwavering backing from Hollywood's elite. Despite all that, she still managed to blow through an eye-watering $1 billion and ended her campaign $20 million in debt. Let that sink in. That's not just a loss. That's a political implosion for the history books. And the worst part? John Heilman's smug, condescending tone, acting like American voters just didn't get Kamala. That attitude says it all about the media class. Detached, arrogant, and completely out of touch. No wonder they're bleeding trust and losing their grip on public sentiment. Maybe instead of pointing fingers at voters, it's time they take a brutally honest look in the mirror.
Small dollar donors are arguably the worst thing that's happened to our politics, as it turned out.
It's a small dollar donor didn't make $20 billion. No.
A lot of it.
Some of it, yeah.
And they represent about 2% of our country.
There's a few special PACs in there that saw $100 million plus.
Those are bad, too.
I think you can believe that you could have shorter elections in America, but it's not like we don't know. In Britain, for instance, when you have a short election, it's not like you don't know who the leader of the party is for months and years before that.
But you're either the person who's Googling the day before, did Biden drop out, or you know in a week. You know, did anyone in this audience not know enough about Kamala Harris pretty much after a week to make a decision? Yeah, it's ridiculous. We just get sicker of.
There are two glaring problems here that absolutely need to be called out. First, since when did small donors become a problem? That's one of the purest, most democratic forms of political support we have. Everyday people willingly pitching in a few dollars because they genuinely believe in a candidate. That's the backbone of grassroots politics. The kind of civic engagement we should be celebrating, not mocking. If you're complaining about small donors, what you're really saying is you don't like the kind of people making those donations, which says a whole lot more about your elitism than it does about the system itself. Second, the idea of short election cycles might sound nice in theory, but who exactly gets to dictate that timeline? Any attempt to limit when a candidate can start campaigning slides straight into dangerous territory and tramples on First Amendment rights. Freedom of speech doesn't come with an expiration date. And let's be honest, starting early doesn't guarantee anything anyway. History is full of early frontrunners who crashed and burned before they even hit Super Tuesday. But instead of acknowledging any of that reality, these two just kept spinning excuses until Bill Maher, clearly fed up, stepped in and delivered the reality check they needed.
I have to make all these excuses for her. This, like I said, all this was this week was people who said, "Oh, she ran a flawless campaign. How ridiculous!" Or it's racism. This is an old playbook.
Yes, I didn't say any of those things.
I know, but I've heard a lot of these things, and I think America's perfectly willing to elect a woman. They just didn't like the last two that were put up.
Exactly. Gender has nothing to do with it. What actually matters to voters are candidates' policies, their track record, and whether they can communicate a clear, compelling vision for the country. When all three are a mess, voters look the other way. Every time, no matter who you are. It really is that simple. Trying to guilt or shame people into voting based on identity alone isn't just lazy politics. It's manipulation, plain and simple. The last election proved Americans are hungry for competence, not empty symbolism. And if you need more proof of how far removed Kamala Harris is from that reality, just watch a recent clip from the Pacific Palisades in California. It's the kind of tone-deaf moment that says more than any press conference or spin ever could.
What goes through your mind when you see this? You're here, you're now seeing it up close.
It's not only seeing it, Alex, you can smell it. You can feel it, right? So it's seeing it with our eyes, and many people have seen it. You all are covering it. but to literally be on the ground here, you can smell the smoke that was here. You can feel the toxicity, frankly, of the environment.
No other word fits better. We seriously dodged a bullet with her. And now, all eyes are on California, hoping voters are see through the same smoke and mirrors and don't hand her the governorship she's clearly aiming for. This is a pivotal moment. And what happens next will show whether we've actually learned anything or if we're just doomed to repeat the same old mistakes. But now I want to hear from you. What's your take? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get the conversation going. And if you found this video worthwhile, share it with your friends. It really helps more than you know. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.